Hey, Tommy from the Run Testers. In this video, we are going to be doing a comparison of the New Balance 1080 V14 and Saucony Ride 17. Let's have a look. The New Balance 1080 V14 costs £160 or $164.99. It weighs 287 grams or 10.1 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 6mm. The Saucony Ride 17 costs £135 or $140. It weighs 285 grams or 10 ounces for men in a size 8, and the drop is 8mm. The New Balance 1080 V14 is a daily shoe built for comfort and accessibility. In the previous version of the shoe, New Balance modified the Fresh Foam X midsole to be noticeably softer, but with that came a dip in the stability and the versatility of the shoe. The 1080 V14 addresses that with a slightly firmer version of the foam and the overall midsole geometry. In addition, there's an updated engineered mesh upper to improve the fit and provide better breathability. That also includes a good level of padding as well as a soft, gusseted tongue. On the outsole is a modest layer of rubber across the key areas of the shoe, although this doesn't cover the full length of the midsole foam. The Saucony Ride 17 receives a big update in the form of a new PWRRUN Plus midsole, the same material used in the Triumph 21. This addition dramatically changes the experience of running in the Ride to provide more cushioning, increased energy return and a smoother transition. Built for daily miles, the Ride 17 aims to provide a balance of comfort, versatility and a touch of stability for ticking off the miles. The upper also sees an upgrade with a new engineered mesh design to improve breathability and a 360-degree fit to ensure a good lockdown. On the outsole, there's a generous layer of rubber to protect the midsole and provide a good level of grip on varied road surfaces. And there's plenty of interior padding for a plush level of step-in comfort.
When it comes to fit, I ran in a UK 8.5, which is my regular size in both shoes. The fit on both is good. I get good security and hold in all the key areas, heel, midfoot, no slipping to report. The New Balance 1080 V14 definitely has a closer, more hugging fit. It's a bit more plush, it's not quite as roomy. The Ride 17, I think, have a bit more wiggle room in the toe box. It's a bit more airy on the foot. They just feel a bit more spacious overall, but both hold really well. They both have good comfort. And I'd recommend going true to size unless you have particularly wide or long feet, in which case I'd maybe consider going half a size up in the New Balance.
So I've got my normal size with both of these shoes, which is a UK 9. With Saucony, that's a US 10. It's a US 9.5 with New Balance. New Balance can be a bit more up and down with its sizing across its shoes, but I found that the 1080 fit me true to size in that 9/9.5, and I had a good hold around the heel and midfoot, good amount of room in the toe box. Saucony the same. They're very consistent with their sizing. I've got the same size across their entire range pretty much, and the Ride 17 fits in the same way as all those shoes. So no concerns really with either shoe about the hold at the heel or anything like that. Only concern related to fit is these little fabric eyelets you get on the Ride 17. I have broken one of those by pulling too hard on my laces, and that's something to look out for if you do have the shoe. I don't think it's going to be a common problem. I haven't done it to any other eyelets on the shoe or more than once, but yeah, they're a little bit more flimsy than the kind of more traditional eyelet setup you have on the New Balance.
So I would say these two shoes are very comparable when it comes to fit. They're both very comfortable shoes. There's plenty of space in the forefoot, before the big toe and around the side. I'd say that the Ride 17 is a little bit less forgiving than the 1080 V14. I've got fairly average width feet and I haven't had any problems with either of these shoes, but I would say that if you did have much wider feet, you might notice that a little bit more on the Ride 17 than the 1080 V14. There's plenty of padding on both of these shoes, not loads, but what you'd expect from a daily shoe. Plenty of comfort. They're both shoes designed for comfort, so I would definitely stay to my size in both of these shoes.
So you've got two good cushioned daily trainers here that are primarily focused on comfort, I'd say, but do give you a little bit of versatility. You can use them for a mix of runs, both a little bit different to their predecessors. The Ride 17 is quite different to the Ride 16 and 15, which were lighter, kind of lower profile shoes that had a firmer feel. They were more designed to be kind of lightweight, up-tempo daily trainers, whereas the Ride 17 has kind of taken over where the Triumph 21 left off, with the Triumph 22 being a very different shoe. You've now got a similar setup in the Ride 17 to the Triumph 21 with that that PWRRUN Plus midsole, which is a very reliable foam. It's a foam we've seen in shoes for many years, and it delivers a nice blend of comfort and responsiveness. It's quite a dense feeling foam. It lasts forever, but it kind of does deliver the properties you expect in a durable daily trainer like this. I'd say the Ride to me feels a little bit less cushioned in the Ride 17. It's got a lower stacking. You can feel that, particularly under the forefoot, where it's a fair bit thinner than New Balance, and with a slightly slappier feel to it as well. It doesn't feel quite as rockered as the New Balance 1080 V14 for me, which the 1080 V14 was a really pleasant surprise, because it's never been a shoe that's been right at the top of my list. I found some of the older versions were kind of okay, pretty standard daily trainers, and then the 1080 V13, which was really soft, just a bit too soft for me. And with the 1080 V14, they just tweaked that midsole a little bit to be a little bit more resilient, and I get a much better ride out of it as a result. It's still a really soft shoe and a comfortable shoe, softer than the Ride 17, I'd say, but I now have a much smoother transition. I get a little bit more kind of responsiveness off the toes as well, because that foam is that little bit more resilient. It just creates a really nice ride for easy runs with quite a sprightly feel. You're still being very well protected, but it feels like quite a nimble shoe on your foot. And then it does have a little bit more versatility as well, I think, because the really soft foam on the previous model, I think I just got lost in and kind of waded through it, whereas you get a bit more back from the foam in the 1080 V14. I did a run wearing both shoes at the same time, and you can really feel the smoother transition and the slight extra softness you get with the 1080 V14, I'd say. Like, you have that denser feel of the Ride 17. It slaps through a little bit more. It feels a little bit heavier on the foot, but it doesn't really feel like heavy per se. It's just bigger. This feels much more nimble, the 1080 V14, and I think part of that is just the way the ride transition is a little bit better for me as a heel striker. They both feel pretty good and comfortable, but you get a softer feel, and like I say, that slightly more sprightly feel from the 1080.
So these two shoes are shoes that you'd use for your daily training miles. Both shoes that are designed for ticking off the miles comfortably, and adding possibly a little bit of versatility as well. The 1080 V14, I really like the shoe. I think it's a solid daily training shoe. I don't think it's a particularly versatile shoe, but the previous version of the shoe, the 1080 V13, was really, really soft. They really maxed out the softness on that shoe, and you really notice it on the run. I love that shoe. I preferred that shoe to the 1080 V14 just because I like soft shoes, but I would only use that shoe for easy, comfortable miles. I'd never use that for interval sessions, tempo sessions, anything like that. It's just too soft and too squishy for that sort of run. But it's very comfortable for easy day runs, for recovery runs, and possibly just any run you need comfort, and you're not trying to do anything else with it. The 1080 V14, the midsole foam has been modified a bit to be a little bit firmer. It's not massively firm, but it's definitely firmer than 1080 V13. As a result, it has a little bit more stability in it, which is what a lot of people didn't like about the 1080 V13. It lost a bit of stability. This is a lot more stable, and it's also a bit more responsive as a result of that midsole foam becoming a little bit firmer. But still, it's very comfortable, easy day shoe. It's very the midsole is very balanced, so it does have a bit of softness in it. Just great for ticking off the miles. I wouldn't say it's particularly a shoe designed for running faster in. You could probably go up to maybe faster, longer sessions, things like that. It's probably an all right long run shoe. Definitely wouldn't use it for interval sessions or faster training sessions where you really want to go top speed. But it is a solid all-round daily shoe, very much like it. I think it's the strength of this shoe is that it is very accessible to a lot of people. You get a bit of everything, bit of stability, bit of softness, bit of comfort. It's all in there. It's a great shoe, especially if you're a beginner, or if you just want something in your rotation that just ticks off all of those runs where you're not necessarily doing anything specific. The Saucony Ride 17, big fan of this shoe. Used it quite a bit when it came out last year, and it's very similar to the 1080 V14. It's a very balanced daily shoe that isn't too soft. It's a bit firmer than the 1080 V14 for me, and as a result, it's a little bit more versatile. I definitely think this shoe has a bit more pop in it. I'm more likely to use the Ride 17 if I was going out to do a faster session. If I was going on holiday and I wanted to take a shoe with me that I could do all of my easy runs and do some interval sessions, things like that in, much more likely to choose the Ride 17 just because I think it's got a little bit more to it than the 1080 V14. I think the 1080 V14 is better for easy runs because of the way that midsole foam is built. But I think the Ride 17 is better for faster runs. So it really comes down to that sort of what your focus is when it comes to daily runs and what you're most likely to do as part of a training block. And other things I'll say about these two shoes is that they're both pretty stable. You get a good solid ride in both of these shoes. But when it comes to stability, they both have very similar midsole foam, so you're getting a good solid ride in both of these shoes. Other thing I'd say about this is the outsole on the Ride 17, very, very good. I really like this outsole. It's got a good covering of rubber on it, but it's quite a sticky rubber, so it's got nice little grooves in it. Very good for running in the rain or anything like that. I have no problems at all with the Ride 17. 1080 V14, equally, it's a good outsole. I prefer the Ride 17 outsole. It's just a little bit grippier for me and less exposed sections from the midsole. I haven't had any problems in the 1080 V14, and I've done about 70k in this shoe now, and there's not really any sign of wear or tear on the midsole sections of the shoe, but Ride 17 has a better outsole for me.
In testing, I've run loads of miles in the Saucony Ride 17. It's one of my go-to shoes for my casual runs. I use it a lot when I'm not testing other shoes and I want reliable comfort on a kind of heads-up run. I've covered around 50 kilometers in the New Balance 1080 V14. I've mixed up the pace and terrain in both shoes. I did a 5-mile progression run in the V14 just last night, in fact. Quick take on both these shoes. Well, starting with the Ride 17. I love the Ride 17. There's excellent disappearing comfort and a really good ride that balances cushioned landings with a rolling response and a bit of springy energy. For me, it's one of those shoes that just feels natural straight out of the box. It's not totally effortless, but it's very easy for covering long miles, whether you're moving slow and easy or pushing things slightly more up tempo. It's not super soft, it's not super energetic, but it's nicely consistent, and I think it represents pretty good value. For me, the 1080 V14 offers, roughly speaking, more of the same as the 1080 V13. It's a really well cushioned shoe that's great for easy miles. There's loads of plushness and comfort in the heel collars, the tongues and the uppers, and it really does an excellent job of dampening the road impact. I like the fact that it's back to having a stiffer, more immediate feel underfoot with this generation. So it's still highly cushioned, but not quite as soft as the 1080 V13. That brings a bit more immediacy to the ride and some more energy. So I was able to move up from sort of 8 to sub 7 minute mile pace on my progression run. And the 1080 V14 handled all of that really well last night. There's a bit more upper pace potential, I think, than you get from the V13. So I also did a side-by-side mile with one shoe on each foot. It actually turned out to be closer to 2 miles when I was out there doing it. But the big difference here, I think, is the New Balance 1080 V14 just has a bit more softness and a bit more bounce. The Saucony Ride 17 on the foot, you know, it's a bit more connected. It's a bit firmer. It doesn't sink as much. There's not as much kind of return of the foam. So it feels a bit more controlled and there's a bit more stability in the Ride 17. The New Balance 1080 V14 isn't necessarily a hugely unstable shoe, but it is a slightly more wobbly shoe underfoot. I think if you really need a bit more stability, the Ride 17 is going to give you more than the New Balance 1080 V14. I think there's maybe slightly more energy in the V14 as well, which I think is different from what we got from the V13. Before, I would have put the Ride 17 kind of well ahead of the V13 in terms of its overall versatility, but I think the 14 now comes much closer. The other thing, I think there's definitely more hugging feel on the foot with the New Balance than you'll get with the Ride 17. It's a bit more roomy in the toe box. Both have very comfortable fits on the foot, but yeah, that's the main difference here. I think you can feel the higher stack as well on the New Balance 1080 V14 a bit more. There's a bit more connection to the ground in the Ride 17. You really notice it when you put them side by side, but I would use both of these shoes for the same kinds of runs mainly.
Okay, so which one would I buy out of these two shoes? Tricky one, because I like both of these shoes. Neither of them is my favourite running shoe. Neither of them is the top of my list for daily running shoes. I'm definitely more likely to go for something like the Mizuno Neo Vista, which is a bit bouncier, a bit more enjoyable to run in. These are a little bit more traditional, a little bit more stable, a little bit more balanced when it comes to running, which makes them a bit more accessible. Shoes like the Mizuno Neo Vista are a little bit soft and a little bit wobbly, so if you want more stability, you're not going to get it in that shoe. Both of these very stable shoes, very comparable shoes if you're looking for a solid all-round daily trainer. I think it really just comes down to that versatility factor of it, which if you're looking for a faster training shoe, and it's not the fastest training shoe out there, but you can definitely do a lot more than 1080 V14, I'd go for the Ride 17. If you're looking for all-out comfort and easy day over faster sessions, 1080 V14. The other thing as well is the price of these two shoes. There's a bit of a difference between these two by about £25. Because of that, I'm going Ride 17 all the way. One, because I prefer to use this for those faster sessions, but also it's just better value all round. So I'm picking the Ride 17 in this Versus.
Verdict then, and I think what you've got here are two genuinely good shoes, both better towards the slower end of paces, but both with some versatility and some capability if you want to move up a few gears. I wouldn't choose either of them for my fastest efforts, but in a pinch, I can hit marathon pace and beyond quite comfortably, though I have to work for it in both of these shoes. I prefer the roomier disappearing feel of the Ride 17 to the slightly cocooning hug that you'll get from the plushness of the 1080 V14. I also think the Ride 17 offers a slightly more stable, consistent rolling ride that's a bit more connected to the road. If you prefer more softness and bounce, though, go for the 1080 V14. If you want more stability and ground feel, I think the Ride 17 is your shoe. For me personally, I'd be very happy to have either shoe in my rotation, but I think it comes down to value, so the cheaper Ride 17 gets my vote, not least because I've seen it going on deals for well under £100 at the moment.
The Ride 17 is a really good shoe, and it's a good value shoe as well. It will give you a very consistent level of performance across the lifespan of the shoe, which I expect to be very long. You get a little bit of versatility here, you get comfort, it's a good foam, it's a good shoe, but I do prefer the ride feel of the 1080 V14. Like, it's a bit more expensive, but I think you are getting an upgrade in ride enjoyment from it. Like I say, it's a bit softer, rolls through a bit better, has a bit more cushioning under the forefoot, which adds to the comfort of the shoe. It's just a bit more comfortable and cushioned in general, I would say, whilst also being lighter than the Ride 17. And I think all round it's a shoe I prefer to use for pretty much any kind of run, but especially on those easy runs where it just feels like a shoe that disappears a bit more on the foot, or one that is just a bit more enjoyable than the Ride 17 for me, which, like I say, is a very solid performer. You can pick it up, you're not really going to be disappointed. I think it will suit lots of different runners, but 1080 is the one I'd pick. It's just a shoe that I enjoyed running in more.
That's it from us on this Versus. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the little bell, and if you're going to catch me below, you can find it into our podcast, which comes out a couple of times each month. Thanks a lot for watching. Catch you next time.